Welcome to the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the Managing Director of B Squared and the host of the Sencast, the podcast for special educational needs and disability. Each week on the podcast, we talk about a different topic within the world of special educational needs and disability to improve our knowledge, to provide support to professionals working in schools, to empower parents and to raise awareness. This week, I was joined in a lively discussion by Louise Selby and Janet Goring. And our topic for this week was with the SEND reforms. And that question is, where do specific learning difficulties fit in? And it was a great conversation. The Sencast is powered by B Squared. And alongside the Sencast podcast, we also run our online training sessions called Sencast Sessions. If you go to the Sencast website, you'll see there is a range of over 150 training sessions, often featuring the same amazing podcast guests. And we also run a free SEND briefing twice a year so you can keep up to date with what's going on in the world of SEND. And to find out more about our training sessions and those free SEND briefings, go have a look at the Sencast website. Now, let's get on with that podcast. My guests this week are Louise Selby and Janet Goring. Louise is a dyslexia specialist advising, supporting and training schools around dyslexia. She previously worked as a specialist advisory teacher for Hertfordshire Local Authority, and she did that for 11 years. Janet is an SpLD specialist with a particular focus on math difficulties and dyscalculia, supporting and training assessors and schools in this area. She has taught for 25 years and set up a local authority service for pupils with maths difficulties. Welcome to the show, Louise and Janet.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Thanks for inviting me.
You are very, very welcome. Now, I'm not going to lie, we have just sat here for a whole hour already, talking, putting the world to rights and many other things. And there was lots of concerns we were already recording, but we weren't. And now we've got to find something new to say. So, the school's white paper and the SEND reform proposals released earlier this year. It's the hot topic above everything else at the moment. And there are lots of changes coming, but there's also a lot of detail missing. And one of the areas that hasn't had much discussion widely, but Louise and myself, I think Janet, have kind of had those thoughts and shared, is that change from 4 broad areas of need to 5 areas of development and the implications of what those changes will do.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about this. I have voiced this when I first read the proposal documents. I read the whole 175 pages and thought, where's cognition and learning? That's the first thing I thought. And then I read it again thinking, have I missed this? And then I listened to what lots of people were saying, and lots of people had a lot to say, but no one really seemed to be talking about this. But now, as you know, we've moved on a few months since, I'm really, really concerned that the new 5 areas do not cover the needs that are associated with SpLD. And I mean, do you know, to be honest, because you introduced me as a dyslexia specialist, and I am, but actually I don't really mind about that term. I'm not bothered about that term. I'm bothered about the needs that underlie literacy difficulties, and I don't see them there in those new areas.
And I think one thing before we dive in is it isn't just changing from 4 to 5. That's not.
No.
There's also changes. So with the 4 broad areas of need, generally a child need would be put in one of those categories.
Yeah.
So SpLD, cognition and learning. I think ADHD and autism often end up in there as well, don't they? But some are SEMH and some are communication.
Yeah.
But they literally almost like there is a list of mapping them, isn't it? And if it's this, it's this. And it is very much label led.
Yeah.
So if you have this label, doesn't matter what else is going on, if you have that label, you're in that area. Whereas with the 5 areas of development, 5 children with dyslexia could have different areas and different areas. That's the point. It's what does each child need? And which sounds great. Yeah. Actually, rather than just going dyslexia, generic, it's in this area. Actually, this child is really struggling with their social and emotional needs because of the impact of that dyslexia. This one's struggling with maybe the sensory side. So you actually, those different children have different profiles across the 5 areas of development, which is great. But as you said, the big bit is cognition and learning's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where most EHCP cases were before. So it seems like a bit of an oversight. And like Louise, I wondered if everyone was reading the same paper.
Yeah.
Because it just seems such a large gap.
Yes. And it is one of the things I've written documents and Louise has read it. And she's like, and I looked at it and gone, so if cognition and learning is going and I can see like where neurodiversity will go into executive function and I can see all of that. But one of my concerns is low ability children with no specific area of need. They were just maybe like MLD where they were putting cognition and learning.
Yeah.
And my initial thing was, well, where's that going to sit? And then I think you reached out and went, yeah, but what about dyslexia and all the SpLD? And it's like, and a bit does go in sensory and a bit does go, but there's a lot which will not fit into them.
Yeah.
The whole underlying areas of SpLD, maths and dyslexia, literacy are not there actually. And I think the thing that bothers me, and there's a lot of questions around this, is there's been huge piece of research on both areas, and I know, Janet, you were involved in the math side of it, and yet that's not there. We know what underlies these conditions, dyslexia, SpLD, maths, dyscalculia, but it's not there. And some people were saying, well, we could perhaps squeeze it into executive function, and there is some overlap, but it's not the same. We know what underlies these conditions, and yet they are not there. And as you say, the MLD, that kind of area as well, that kind of area of processing are not there. We've got speech and language, we've got motor, really important, executive function. So glad it's there.
That is such a positive
so important,
move,
but that's not. I just don't know why they weren't included, and I'd really like them to be included.
And it is, again, you can split those bits of dyslexia and dyscalculia and all of them and go, actually, some of that is executive function and some of it is there. And
Some
that's
of it,
kind
yeah.
of like, well, actually, some will struggle, but there are just huge chunks missing. And that's the thing. I sat there and, it's going to go in. And I kind of looked, and I used a generic definition of dyslexia and those difficulties and went,
It's not
there is
there.
a huge chunk not in these areas. And the big concern, and you've both read my Who Will Be Send document, or you can listen to it as an episode on the podcast, is if you're not needing support in these 5 areas, are you send? And that's one of the bits that government needs to kind of define. And it might be, is it a case of those coming higher up? It's kind of thing. Is it because the universal provision is going to increase? I just want more. I just want more answers.
I wondered if it's sort of this idea that if you get the universal offer right, there won't be these needs. So you won't need to use that term. Shoehorn into a badly fitting shoe that was in the TS a couple of weeks ago.
Nice analogy.
And that's the problem. We're moving away. We're saying we're moving away from labels, and then we're trying to put people into very specific categories. So we have to make sure, if we're going to do that, we have to make sure there are enough categories. And it also means you're not necessarily thinking of the children holistically. You're just thinking about where they fit in and how that maps with the...
because the needs-led approach is absolutely really important. And I think any decent SpLD professional would say the same. We're not actually bothered about the label, but the needs have to be listed there. And I think I was slightly more cynical because I just thought they got forgotten. Because I see this in, I work with, or I speak to and work with schools across the country, and I just see cuts and cuts and cuts in those services that meet cognition and learning needs. And yet I also see unmet cognition and learning needs in children who have those other areas of difficulty, perhaps, where sometimes that emotional regulation comes from unmet learning needs, and yet they're not being met. There's cuts and cuts and cuts. So I thought, gosh, it's just been forgotten, actually. Dyslexia and SpLD maths, they're not a priority, and perhaps that was why they weren't there. I don't know.
But we do know that on the in the SEND reforms, where you've got the infographic with the 5 areas, there are typos. I think in one of the areas, something's repeated twice. So you're like, okay, is this a properly thought out, or is this just we're going to throw this out there and get feedback?
It's slightly confused, isn't it? Because it's got primary and secondary mixed up there.
And I wonder if actually there is if there is space for a sixth area, a sixth area.
Yeah.
And that's that bit about learning. Because that's a bit, to me, executive function is a huge barrier.
Yeah, but that's where it all comes together as well. It's in the actual learning is where
it kind of is quite important in schools, isn't it?
Yeah, we're meeting your needs, but we don't need to learn.
I mean, there was a big part of me that thought of the lovely, wonderful Senkos in schools, right? Who are, and we know how busy they are, possibly going to be a little bit more busy for a few years of transition. And I thought, right, they've got these children who struggle with spelling. They want to put them on a spelling intervention. Is it executive function? Is it speech and they don't know.
Multisensory for sensory.
Do they really need to, at that stage, do they really need to know? But if they do, it's the cognition and it's the cognition, those functions that are underlying, those spelling, whatever it is, whatever it looks like in the actual learning. The learning is kind of the outworking and what's going on underneath is the important bit. But yes, absolutely, a section on cognition, not even learning, but cognition or cognition and learning.
I think one of the concerns is, I'm guessing from the government, is I've heard lots of things kind of saying, and this is not every school or every local authority, but if they're maybe not performing as they should and they're below, you don't do much further investigation of why. You don't know if it's executive function, you don't know if it's that short-term memory, you don't know if it's dyslexia, so you end up just putting cognition and learning, and it's like it's a catch-all.
It is, but it gets them on the system. But
again, this is the thing is, and again, you've both read my Who Should Be SEND, is should we be giving all those children a SEND label, or is it, have they got other barriers to learning?
Yeah.
And it kind of starts are they SEND, are they not, are they that, are they this? And it's that you should be investigating why they're struggling, and they may then move from there into one of the other areas, and that, we're getting support there. And I get they're almost like getting rid of that catch-all to get better. But actually, there are children whose actual needs are specifically in that area and are clearly identifiable, like all the SpLDs. That needs a place.
But it's also environmental factors as well. So, where do those children fit in? They've still got learning needs. They're still entitled to support.
I'm trying not to go through my whole document that I've written.
Dale's written a long paper on that one.
But it is, again, a question and one of my questions in there is SEND something we do, or is a child SEND? Is it their needs, or is it a case of, okay, they're below, so we're doing something that's SEND? And in reality, at the moment, I feel it's if we do something, it's SEND, because that's the vehicle to get funding, that's the vehicle to get those things. But as you said, if it's environmental, if it is they've kind of in a care and move through various homes, different authorities, service, all those things which mean the child is not stable, and kind of they haven't got that grounding of being in that. That might cause them to be working below, but does that mean they have SEND? We're not saying we don't provide the support. The support is most definitely needed, but should it be under the term of, oh, you've got special needs? No, I've just had a really disrupted life, thank you.
Yeah. There was this idea that you had to be working 2 years below. So if...
To get the funding.
To get the support. So you could still be working 2 years below, but not fit into the categories. So you don't get the support. Go and throw a chair. Then we can put you in a category.
Basically, you shouldn't be saying that, but in reality...
In reality, it's... you know.
It's the thing, if you're quiet and below,
Yeah.
you get forgotten. You need to be that disruptive child. But it is that sort of thing and again, I think one of the things they really should have done in the last reforms back in 2014 is a standard national approach, not let each authority do its own thing and have their own rules and their own. Because it means when we get this nationalised thing, you can both write lovely books of how to get your child X. And that will apply across the whole country.
Yeah.
Which means that you can use that. Whereas you don't want to have to write 150 odd books of how to get X in this authority. That it's the rules change. It's just to me, the standardised thing is great, and I think it will really, really help not only for parents, but I think it helps schools understand the expectations. They're not going, oh, they're in a different authority that works differently.
But I think that was one of the. I mean, a lot of it hasn't changed. It was needs-based before, but this move away, I think it was partly about the idea of getting rid of local authorities and going to trusts, that sort of taking away from national standards more locally. And for instance, the taking away the assessment levels. You know, so now we're left with that idea. I think that all comes from that move of trying to give schools or trusts more autonomy, but we know it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this sort of, and you have, working below.
Yes,
what does
we
that
have.
mean?
It's just so
How
depressing.
below?
Yeah.
How do we know they're making progress?
But the whole thing about, you know, what you said there, Dale, is about this, how do we get funding? And I think this shift is moving away from that, isn't it? Because the inclusion standards, in theory, will provide fantastic support so that we're not looking for funding. It's all or a lot of it, most of it is at universal level. So there won't be need to look for funding, look for recognition. And we had the debate earlier about whether an educational diagnosis would still be sent if the needs are met at universal. And I'm still not sure about that. I think it depends on legal definitions, doesn't it?
It comes back to, there's two reasons you get a diagnosis. One is you need the support and it will unlock money. But it also tells you a story about your life.
Yes.
It kind of goes, this isn't your fault. And that's the big
Yes,
thing. When I got my
that's
diagnosis,
huge.
from a personal point of view, that is huge. So we should not get a diagnosis because it will help explain that child to them why they're having difficulties. But if they get supported, if they do all that and they're not doing it, then they shouldn't be on the SEND register. But it doesn't take away the dyslexia.
Yeah, it doesn't take away the need.
Just to be clear, I'm talking rose-tinted, everything lovely. And you mentioned the inclusion standards, and there are probably those who listen to this podcast, when they come out, you'll be going, yeah, I've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
But there are schools who will look at that going, we can't do that, and then realise that loads of other schools have been doing it fine for years. And I think that's going to be, people are worried that they're going to have to do lots more. But generally, for those who are already doing those things, it's going to just say what you're doing already. But there are lots of schools not doing it.
I would hope that if you have a diagnosis, you are on the SEN register, even if you're not getting support.
Do you mean a diagnosis of SpLD?
SpLD, yeah.
Because
Or
I do
most-
think medical diagnosis is a little bit different, actually. But sorry to interrupt you.
But yeah, so you should be on the register because it should, well, really, there is a need if you've got the time. There must be some need.
It's a cognition and learning assessment, and you identify a need rather than just categorise. But the other thing to say about that, and we know with, I'm going to keep banging on about research because we've got it in dyslexia, but the research on our recent definition, the Delphi definition of dyslexia, shows that dyslexia changes over time. And I see this, and I often warn schools and parents, look, schools say to me, well, they can't have dyslexia because they can read. And say, well, yeah, they're in year 3, they've learnt to decode, you've taught them really well, you've done your phonics and whatever else you've done, but let's just keep an eye on this, because often it's fluency. Often by year 5 and 6, they're really struggling, and it doesn't look like a reading problem all the time. It might look like a spelling and writing problem. It might just look like they're behind. And then or slow, not behind, slow. And then what happens is it's identified as a mental health problem. And then, I mean, I see this all the time. And then that's the support they get. But if that child who's coping really well in year 3, you know, it's great school, there are some really great schools out there, not having them on that register because they're coping at universal, I think is really dangerous, especially at times of transition. Going to secondary is massive for a lot of dyslexic kids, and in reality it's even harder, isn't it, to get the support there.
So again, we always look at it to how it is now, and that's always a hard thing not to do. And on Friday I went to look at a university with my daughter, and we went to the student support talk for kind of disabilities and so on. What actually can you do? And they did a lovely talk about all the reasonable adjustments they can do and all this stuff. And that, to me, all of that, as soon as you have the word reasonable adjustments, that's a different to a normal. And while we're still in that, then that you will still need to be on the SEM register, because it's kind of like, this is a flag for I need to access stuff, something different or two. But again, if they're saying that universal provision is lots of that is just going to be always available,
as part of universal,
part of the universal,
the reasonable adjustments are universal provision.
we still need to know that child has dyslexia. We still need to know
exactly,
that.
Exactly.
But if in reality, again, you'd probably say this would be heaven, that during a lesson, that child with dyslexia has all their needs met just through the standard lesson, that would probably be heaven. Actually, there's bits in there just happening automatically, like there are Teams putting the subtitles on. Then they shouldn't be on the SEM register, but it doesn't mean they're not dyslexic, and that still needs to be recorded. And I think, to me, again, that diagnosis and send are two separate bits. That's a future world, not right now.
I think we probably do agree. I would just say a word of caution that with dyslexia, and I think maths SpLD as well, it's not always what happens in the lesson, you know. And schools, some great schools I work with do that, but then it's when they get home, or it's when they're at lunchtime, they're exhausted. It's that complete fatigue and that impact, and that's the, you know, definition of disability, isn't it? It's an impact
that
on everyday life. And so even if they have those brilliant adaptations in the lesson, and that is happening now in some places, that doesn't mean they shouldn't be sent, because we're looking at the whole, and we're looking at belonging, aren't we, and enrichment, and are they coping? And if they're having an intervention, are they missing out on other things in school? So even if I guess if they're having an intervention, it wouldn't be universal, would it?
I was going to say, I think the problem is managing expectations. So this idea that if you're on the SEN register, something has to happen.
Yes.
And that's where I was as a parent, 15 years ago. You can't put him on the SEN register unless you're doing something. Yeah. And you can explain why he's on the register.
I think you talked about being on the register, and it used to be something years ago. You were 2 levels below, type thing. That sort of thing. I think the general consensus on if a child should be on the SEM register is if you are doing something different or additional.
Yes.
That's the wider definition. But lots of them also have other lists, which you don't technically need, a monitoring list.
Yes.
For that child who has a diagnosis but isn't currently needing support. But that bit you just touched on, Louise, about that being in the lesson, but actually outside of the lesson, just drained from that extra effort. Everything is provided, but it's still an intense environment. And all those, again, neurodiverse children who are masking.
Yes.
I'm literally flicking through. There's nothing about that. It's about what we are doing in the lesson. It's what we're doing to support learning. Well, and actually how are we doing? How are we allowing them to regulate in those unstructured times?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, and the reason why I feel the need to advocate so much with SpLD is that is so often hidden. And I think this is why perhaps it does get forgotten, and perhaps it's thought, well, we can meet those needs in the class. We can, we can have assistive technology, we can chunk instructions, we can use visual aids, etc., alternative ways of recording, all of those things. And schools do that. But that need doesn't go away. They just are unable to access that curriculum. And I would argue that with SpLD and, learning difficulties, it's at the centre of what we're doing. It's teaching and learning. And the way that our whole schools are set up, another podcast, but, we test them, we evaluate them on how well they remember, how quickly they can work, and basically how well they can read. Don't care whether it's science, maths, a lot of it is about how quick they are and how well they can read. Well, that's at the centre of dyslexia, and quite a bit in maths as well. So to say, well, they're just kind of coping in those lessons, it's still there. It hasn't gone away. So to take that away, that send register, I think would be really problematic. There needs to be some sort of protection, even if the school is coping really well.
But again, it's very outside of the lesson, that, as you said, homework, all those sorts of things.
Homework,
well, even extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
The football teacher needs to know as well. But
it's one of those things, is you're obviously not going to put on the SEN register, they have this. But again, it's almost like it's a different register. It is. But again, you talk about how schools are set up. I still don't understand, because lots of us as adults will go find a quiet, dark corner to rest in and relax and regulate. There aren't schools. Why are they not in schools? Why is there not a dark room which is quiet, that during break time, and some will go, but children need to run around. They need their movement breaks. Yes, lots do. But some need to rest.
I think some schools do, actually.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
I think
need to.
There are schools but it's whether children know they need that. That's one thing. And whether children feel they can do that.
Yes.
That's a cultural thing. If
Yes.
the culture is such that that's okay to do, time-out cards, those things. But
I mean, literally at break time, because that thing is, during lessons you're allowed to maybe go there. But actually, and I know some children go to the library because it's quiet. But you know what? Just a nice dark room that at break time, I'm just going to go sit there and close my eyes.
it'd be full of all the stuff.
I was going to say
no space for kids in there.
But I think that would actually, if staff and students could use it,
they
that
could model it.
That's the thing. It's not them and us.
I think that's part of the issue, is the whole taboo around so many things. And
certainly around I think, and I know this varies from place to place, but I think there is a real taboo now with dyslexia, dyscalculia in your state schools. I think children are more open about having ADHD, having sensory needs, autism even, but there is a real taboo because they still think that means you're thick, which it doesn't. Yeah. We know it doesn't, but it's that reading and writing, and back to that thing, that's what we evaluate in schools. It's how we measure them.
But it's also, and again, as part of your assessing, you'll give this information, but you also, it changes. And I think if you assess someone's dyslexic in primary school, you're not really assessing their executive function at that level, because most often when you're at primary school, your mum gives you your bag and you walk into school, your lunches are provided. When you get to secondary school, that's all on you now.
Yeah.
And I know through my youth work that there are children with dyslexia who just think it's their reading and their writing. They do not know all the things it's impacting. So, as you said, that saying your ADHD is fine, but actually saying you're understanding dyslexia and that wider understanding of dyslexia, it's not just that reading and writing difficulties, it's the organisation. I still think that is still not known, because children with dyslexia do not understand their own condition.
I think, again, that part of the issue is that they're such blanket terms. So actually,
it depends on the child.
It depends on the child, but also it's not at that level. It's the level of above with the processing difficulties. So it's understanding what those processing issues are and the impact.
Yeah, and I would say actually, so we both are assessors, and although we don't assess executive function, I do have a test battery that has an executive function test in, and I can use it on 7-8-year-olds. And we definitely test working memory. That is a huge part of an SpLD assessment, and it's quite a thorough look into how that child is organising themselves, how they're coping with regulating, and then the recommendations that we make would touch on executive function. But if a child doesn't, maybe they haven't had such a good assessment, or if it isn't explained to them, that can be an issue. I think I want to talk about this whole thing about the problem of diagnosis, though, because, and this is my biggest concern around this, the labels and the 5 areas is equity.
Yes.
Because we should not need a diagnosis unless that diagnosis is free at access point. Because as long as we are relying on that diagnosis, which is paid for, it's a really expensive process, it's a really long involved process, we should not need that. We should have a means to identify these underlying processing difficulties, whatever they are. And I think if it's not in those 5 areas, that situation will get worse.
Yeah.
I'm coming from a background where the assessments were free to families.
It's unusual these days.
It's so unusual.
Very
unusual. I'm aware that I've got a narrow view, but I totally agree, and I think we've become too reliant on this need for a diagnosis. And there is, to me, it's like a special club that you get into with the diagnosis. I worry about the kids who don't meet the criteria but have still got the difficulties.
And again, one of the things when I look at those 5 areas of needs, and I'm thinking autism, ADHD, lots of things, I'm going, you know what? Children can have needs without a diagnosis, and those needs are being met.
Yeah.
And that's saying I'm literally going, great, I don't need that label. I don't need to be put in that broad area. I can actually he is struggling in this area, we'll support him. That's the overall aim. However it turns into that, we have no idea till we get there. But it was, Louise pointing out that, for certain lots of things with autism and stuff, that it's all covered. But the SpLD, you can't look at the needs and then drop them in. You'll be left with a big pile
doesn't fit.
which do not fit. And
the shoeghorn analogy.
And somebody said, they'll change the definition of executive function to fit. It's like, no, please don't.
No, that's great that's there.
No, because the government did that with differentiation. They came up with their own term and then said it was wrong. And you're like, yes, your term was wrong. The underlying term is still perfectly fine. And your adaptive teaching is still differentiation, but it's not. And that's the sort I don't want them to come up with, executive function includes all of that. It's like, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It's very specific and very needed, but it's not the same.
And if that means that schools get better support and PD on it, I think we'll see a huge impact in schools.
I had... So I'm really interested in the idea of advocacy as well. And I had a meeting with my amazing MP. My MP's brilliant, Alistair Strathern, if you're listening. There you go. And he's really interested in this paper. And we were talking about the advocacy that is, ironically, advocacy today is not fair because the kids who get support are those who have amazing parents, I'm a parent, amazing parents who will advocate for their child. But that means that those kids, it's not even always about money. It's parents who
I would say it's ability.
Who are capable. It's a lot, isn't it? Doing that tribunal process is a lot.
Even before you get there, it's understanding what is going on, understanding what your child should be entitled to, being able to access all that information.
Yeah.
And again, I've worked with youngsters who I start asking questions, and it's immediately that more or less this child is on their own. They are neurodiverse and they're a young carer.
Yeah.
Who's going to advocate for them?
And they
Who's
might
gonna
have incredible parents,
Yeah.
but parents who don't have
Yeah.
those skills, never mind the money to get the diagnosis.
Yeah, and that's that. When I talk about ability, it's that everything around that is how are they able to do that? And there are parents who will go, right, what's going on? And then they'll go and hyper focus, learn it all, read it all, come back and go, right, this is what you're entitled
Guilty
to.
as charged.
But it's that, and there are lots of parents who are able to do that, and they will advocate and they will fight. But as you said, not all
Lots
parents
can't.
can.
That's what broke my heart about my job, in that, it's not a postcode lottery. When you have a child who can read 3 words in year 5, who's been on the waiting list, where there's a specialist teacher in the school, but sharper-elbowed parents are getting their kids moved up. Not saying they're not entitled to support, but
good for those parents.
Good for
as
those
well.
parents.
Good for them.
I often said, if you don't fight for your child, who will?
Yeah.
And it's really it's good. You look at those parents, or you find out those parents who can't, and you're like, and it's one of those things. It's like, it would be nice that was fairer.
Yes.
Again, the inclusion standards. This is what everyone should be able to access. That definition of this is universal. This is the targeted. This is the support plus. This is having real clear definitions of those nationally would be really good. And again, one thing I am optimistic about is I think that jump to getting an EHCP is going to be smaller, because in theory that child has already been working with experts through the lower tiers. So it's not when we get to that, I need an EHCP, well, we need to get an psych, we need to get this. Like, surely at that point they've probably met them and they've gone, oh, actually we need to escalate this. So on that, I'm hoping that without having to fight for that, actually those professionals are going to see that child and go, yeah, they need more. And I'm hoping it removes that fight. But again, and you've seen in all the social media, there's a lot about the legal entitlement and things like that. We'll only get there parents will only believe it when they see that happening.
I think that's the biggest problem, isn't it? It's not just funding, it's trust.
Yes.
It's hardly anyone has confidence in the system, whatever side you're on. And if we can get that trust back, nice and easy,
and
nice solution.
I'm going rose tinted. I'm starting with I'm believing you, because as we've discussed, and it's Ofsted lining up with the curriculum changes, lining up with the white paper, the
great
SEND
framework
reform.
there.
It's all lining up, and you're going, they've thought about this.
Yeah.
They've not got everything right. I know they're rushing to get it all through before the next scheduled general election, because it has to get through or we're going to start again. So I kind of see why we haven't got the information we really would have wanted in a perfect world. But I feel it's thought out, generally. I feel there is a plan. They may not have revealed it all to us, but I feel there is a plan, and it's given me confidence. But until we get there, until we get to 2029 and it starts coming in and we're going, right, so this should be happening. It happened. It did it. It worked.
So
Then we'll start. Then
I like your
I
hope.
like the enthusiasm, but I feel like we were there
I think
11 years ago thinking that this, it was still supposed to be needs-based. It was supposed to be these tiered approaches, and it hasn't worked. So it's a question of working out how we can make it work this time.
accountability.
Yeah.
accountability, but also budget, because I was speaking to a colleague who is SEND lead in a multi-academy trust, and their funding has come already for the inclusion fund. That's starting now, isn't it? Well, she's got 17 schools and they've got equivalent to half a TA, and we were having per school, and we were having a conversation about what she's really interested in SpLD, wants to meet those needs. There weren't many options for her with half a TA per school, and we went back to looking at computer programs, putting them on a screen, doing computer programs. And I think the same, I was thinking this through, we're talking about the 40 days of experts at hand.
That is a defined term
and I was
for
thinking,
a primary school.
And, one of the things I think I said was it depends on who the expert is.
Yes. And
That's so many questions around
and
that.
they have to be experts.
They have to be experts.
But the experts, again, it could be OT, speech and language therapist. It could be outreach from a special school.
Yeah.
They don't have to be employed by the local authority. They are in charge of commissioning. But I think it should be very much local based. So giving that money to the trusts, that's a spread across the whole trust. That's kind of getting a bit useless. But
some
actually,
trusts are more local, but
boroughs
others
as well.
yeah. So whereas if you could localise that funding, which is what, when I read the experts at hand, says, but again, whether they change that and chicking out, that's when it starts getting effective. So you could half a TA per day is like, well, actually, if I had 10 local schools and we could all employ someone together and they come round and do well, now we're there. Now we're making progress.
We're making progress. It's definitely progress. But when you think of the practicalities of it, and so thinking about our field, SpLD, so let's say we think 10% might have dyslexia, we don't know, but we think that, and then we might say a lot of those needs can be met with really good quality, inclusive standards, accountability, it's becoming a leadership priority. That's really good. But then what about those who are left who still need intervention? Because there are some, and schools are telling me now they don't have anyone to do interventions. Now, I don't know whether that's a school leadership priority, but, and perhaps budgets need to change, allocation needs to change, but it's only a small step, because if you've got that many children who need interventions in each year group, primary is a number of year groups, it's half a TA actually isn't that much.
But again, if we think of the half a TA's worth of time, is actually, again, it's looking at systems and processes and budgets. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
There is School A who are doing all those interventions with the same money as School B who can't do any of them.
Yes.
There's choices being made.
Yes, there is.
And I think the lack of accountability around SEND and the not ring fencing that money means school are making certain decisions which they might have just been always doing it that way. A new head teacher comes in, it's not a decision they've made, they're following the previous. But another school is spending that money differently. That another school is supporting SEND. And I think with Ofsted, again, for us at B Squared, who are all about showing progress, the idea of schools have to show progress from starting point for all pupils, we're getting busy. We're getting trusts coming to us who have just gone, we need to do this. It's like it's for the first time. It's like, no, you should have been doing this for the last however many years. But the accountability wasn't there. Software systems allowed you to use the term below.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's that sort of thing is teachers and schools are really busy. Leaders are really busy. You're going to prioritise where you're going to be held accountable. Until you have that accountability.
Will be good. But then that brings us back to those 5 areas of development, because in what world will schools and those leaders feel they need to prioritise SpLD type needs when they're not even in the 5 areas?
Well, I just have this vision of these ISPs with the 5 areas and then the print falling off the bottom of the page because it doesn't fit in anywhere.
Again, ISP, so there are meetings happening now with suppliers. They're going to be happening July onwards. Going, right, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
So,
But
there's lots of, again, I've got to start hopeful.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
But
The philosophy is
already.
there.
But I think, and going back to that half a day and changing things, I think some schools work really well because they have really good systems and information is communicated and shared, and acted upon. But you can't act upon it unless you have it. So I think for some schools, actually what they really need to do is look at how they communicate. And I think secondary schools are very siloed into departments.
Yeah.
Information doesn't flow from the English department to the maths department to the geography department. There are schools which do. I know there are. But a lot of them, they do not.
It's harder, isn't it?
What happens in English in one lesson, no
Stays
idea the
in
next
English.
lesson. that's the sort of thing. It's going to take time for that school to work out, how are we going to get that continual information? How do we know they had that really bad lesson in English and they walked into maths, they did something, they got in trouble? It's that sort of, we need that understanding. And I think when that whole school understands those children's needs, it's not put on a document, on a shared, which only the SENCO looks at. Actually, when the whole school know that child is dyslexic, understands what dyslexia is, and knows what that child needs, and supports, as you said, not just in the lesson. And it's one of the things you said that I went, I've kind of focused on just on the lesson, that wider needs, that change in communication will have a big impact.
Yeah, I think making communication is so fundamental, especially as you said in secondary schools, and so often that is the issue. The SENCO, who are pretty much superheroes, aren't they? Every SENCO is a superhero, and trying to communicate all of this. But if with the new reforms, the priorities change, the accountability changes, every teacher really is a teacher of SEND, then we would hope that what you say will happen. I think there's still some concern. I mean, I'm concerned about SENCOs leaving the profession through this time of transition, because it's we're kind of moving from the old system to the new, and we're still in consultation, aren't we? And there's a lot for them to do. But
again, so on that, I went to one of the engagement events, and I mentioned this to you both before we started recording, and it was the old system is going to continue. So all those with an EHCP, all those who've been failed by the system already, that's going to continue. And there'll be a new children who hopefully haven't been failed, rose-tinted, who are going to come in. But that SENCO is kind of running two lots. They're running the old way, but hopefully less failing, and they're doing the new way of support. So basically, that SENCO is going to have even more work to do. And I did this engagement. The person went, yeah, that is kind of true. And I went, but you're not giving them an inflation-based pay rise, and you're not funding it. So you're asking everyone to do more, but you're not.
It's always on the SENCO, isn't it?
It's always on SENCO, and it's all that. And you're going, you should be saying, this is so important. We need to make all these changes. We need to do all this stuff. We need to fund it.
We need SENCO teams, actually. It's no longer possible for, especially in secondary, but even in primary, for one SENCO to do the role.
It's so mixed, isn't it?
And there's so many different skills as well that's required.
But again, I don't know if you listened to our episode with the Ofsted inspection with Adam Sproston from Ofsted. But it was, I know
he spoke at that we were both at the Talamo conference last week, and he was speaking. Very positive, And
I was in there. I went into the episode with two things I really wanted to say. It was about protecting SENCOs. It was about saying that if your school fails their inspection, not the correct term now, but doesn't get where they wanted to because of SEND, that will not be because of your SENCO. And he was like, yes. It's because everyone else is not picking up their part. The English lead is not leading on English for all pupils. The maths lead is not supporting all pupils. The head teacher isn't doing this for all pupils. Every person is responsible, which should take some of that strategic load off the SENCO, should. But if they're all going, well, what are you doing about it? Now tell me so I know what to say. That's not right. It should be everyone going to the SENCO, kind of, you've been doing this on your own. I need to do this. I need to be responsible. How are the children in maths doing in that? What maths person should be partially involved in making those intervention decisions? Because they're the maths specialist. They should be talking to that SENCO and making those decisions as a group, not just, there's special needs, leave it to the SENCO. That world we're leaving behind. Ofsted inspection framework is making that change now. And I do hope that's going to continue.
I've heard anecdotally about Ofsted going in and saying, so which are your dyslexic pupils and what are you doing?
Really?
Yes.
Goodness.
And not asking the SENCO.
So
asking the teacher, asking the English lead.
But then we come back to the whole equity thing, don't we? Because Because I want, how much did their parents pay for their diagnosis? Or how, I would want them to come and say, which are your children with specific literacy difficulties, or who have you identified?
I think that will change.
But again, it's using the term in a blanket.
And I guess,
way.
Schools, well-trained schools will identify anyway whether or not they have the diagnosis.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that vision, Dale, that idea that everyone takes SEND on board. I'm so excited about that, because it's that whole school culture, isn't it, and that whole school expertise. I think there's still a lot of problems before we get there, but the vision is good.
Every teacher is a teacher of SEND.
Every leader is a leader of SEND.
Yeah.
SEND is everybody's business. I have a load of catchphrases.
It's not new. It was in, it's been there. It's like, this is new.
But I would say that in my meetings as B Squared, I am having more meetings with the SENCO and the head teacher.
Yes.
So
That's
the head
really
teacher is more
good.
involved, or it's the SENCO and the assessment lead. And even a meeting I had yesterday was the head teacher going, it was about good progress for SEND pupils. And I give them the way I kind of go, this is how to me I would start. And she was like, this is great. I can now actually go, is this child making, there's so many factors, but it's a starting point to go, is this child making the right amount of progress based on their prior, not a formula, their prior attainment.
Yeah.
And when she could ask those questions, see that child wasn't, she can now be, and it's like helping everyone be aspirational. How aspirational should you be for a child with SEND if they're just working below?
Exactly, yeah. And you can see the small steps of progress, can't you?
So to me, I'm having more conversations away from just the SENCO with that wider school. And to me, I'm seeing those changes. It's that small change, it's growing. It's that head teacher going, we need to do this right for all pupils.
And governors as well.
Yes. And again, they'll sit there going, and they're going, the governors or other people, trust leads, they're asking us the same questions that they ask for the mainstream pupils, for the SEND pupils, but they're not the right questions. They're focusing on English, they're focusing on maths. What about those 5 areas of development? And again, you talked about, and again, SEMH is the biggest growing area in the white paper. It showed that's the biggest, but that's often the effect. What's
it's the
cause?
impact of unmet needs, isn't it?
And
there's a recognition of that, though, I think.
And I think when you have all those unmet needs, when you have that SEMH exploding, those children's progress is going to be down.
Yeah.
And then you're going to put all the work in those areas, but yet we'll still judge them on English and maths, which is one of my biggest bugbears. And it's
and memory.
But it's that sort of stuff, and it's like, and I'm having these conversations, and I think years ago I might have had those, it was tokenistic from the head teacher. They're there. They're there, but they're doing something else in the meeting and going, are you happy to SENCO? Yes, cool, then we'll do it. Now I find those head teachers are fully invested in the conversation.
That's really good to hear, yeah.
And that's the thing, there's obviously the white paper. I don't think we're going to see the effect in schools for a number of years for anything in there. But that offset inspection framework, now it's being held accountable. Now we're hearing stories from schools of what you're being asked for. That's having an impact. But to me, the reason I say we won't see those changes for a couple of years is it's the funding changes.
Yes.
When the money arrives, changes can happen.
Some of it has arrived, hasn't it? Some
Half
of
a
them
TA.
Half a TA. I mean,
Which
Top
half?
half or
Which
bottom
half? You've got the right today.
yeah.
I went top bottom, you went everybody,
But I think the Ofsted framework is forcing schools' hands. So I think there is progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with you're not going to get that real progress until the funding matches.
And I suppose the whole area of, because I lead a network of local authority SpLD, cognition and learning advisory teachers, and provision across the country is ridiculously different.
Yes.
Unbelievably different. Some local authorities don't recognise dyslexia. Some local authorities would identify, diagnose, some would train, some would work with children. And I'm also hearing some local authorities and trusts are fantastic at using resources and others are much less efficient. And that side of things really needs to change. That really needs to be looked at. I think your vision that everything's going to be much more centralised and much more standardised is good. I'm a little bit tentative believing that, but I'd love to see that. That will make a huge difference.
So I know lots of people are concerned about that, the accountability leaving the local authority and going to the school.
Yeah, very.
But I think that puts it inside that trust. It makes it that trust leads. And again, trust is everyone's business. So it's not just the trust lead for SEND. It's the head of the trust. Everyone in that everyone in that trust is now going to be responsible for that school's performance set for their SEND pupils. And to me, that is going to be a great thing. At the moment, I think you've got the trusts have their agenda and the local authorities are trying to do this and they don't align. To me, that accountability in the trust, there's going to be much more aligned, positive again.
Yeah, I think there was, so from my point of view of working for a local authority, if it was a local authority school that wasn't delivering, we could do something about it. The problematic cases were the out-of-borough schools where we didn't have any control. So if they weren't delivering and the same with, but generally the multi-academy trusts.
But is that sort of thing you're outside trying to push?
Yeah, but at least we couldn't, when they ring up a week before the annual review and say you need to come in quickly and start teaching or whatever.
See that?
But, so I think that's a positive thing. But I also think, I heard a few local authorities, spoke to a few local authority assessors and specialist teachers last week, and I was horrified with what I was hearing from some of them. And not their fault, let's say. In
terms of what?
The sort of service, they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's varied. It's varied.
So varied.
There's some that are amazing.
Yeah, but we need to hear about it. And it's the same with the schools. We need to hear. We need to stop focusing on what's wrong and hear what's good and what's working and make these examples.
Going back to your kind of the group you lead and you support that network.
Yeah.
Is it, again, from my point of view, it's like, oh, so what are you doing? Oh, that sounds great. Oh,
yeah.
I can't do that. Why? Because of that. What? I can't do that either.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And it's every single one of those people coming to that network have a different set of rules they have to follow.
Absolutely.
And you're trying to share best practice.
There's one theme, which is that cognition and learning is being cut. That's the one theme that is among everyone there. Yeah. Cognition and learning is being cut.
And I suppose that's one thing is we're talking about funding arriving. But sometimes, and again, there's lots of people worrying about this, is if they see that's what's happening in the future, they can cut that now. Some people might be starting to cut that. So if cognition and learning is going, my worry is sometimes, again, it might be that's what I hear lots of people talking about, the worry. And I don't know if it is newspapers writing badly written articles to wind everyone up and get that engagement and get the readership on that article. And it's like the whole thing, the responsibility of SEND pupils is going to sit on the SENCO. And it's like, no, it's quite clearly the opposite spec. But it's that, it grabs people's attention. It grabs the SENCOs who are now worrying. It's like, it's not going to sit on you. It's not. It's going to sit on the head teacher. It's going to sit with the trust. It's going to sit with the English lead, the maths lead. It's going to sit on everyone, not the SENCO.
Something that I'm still a few seconds behind, something that you said, Janet, that I'd really like to raise as well is there's a lot of great practice out there in local authorities of advisory teachers who are recognising need and meeting that need, whether it's through training, whether it's through assessment. They all do it differently. But there's a difference between that and whether we know how many kids have dyslexia, how many kids have SpLD in maths, how many kids have dyscalculia, right? And I'm kind of on the fence here because while I think that knowing if children have dyslexia, SpLD, maths, dyscalculia is really useful. I think in our current climate, where we are budget strapped, if I had to choose, I would choose whether we know what their needs are and put support in place for that.
Yeah.
And I think we hear about screening, don't we? And we've talked about that screening comes into the reforms, but there's screening and there's screening.
Yes.
So there's screening that tells you this child might have dyslexia. Okay, what do I do? Go and pay someone. But there's also screening which tells you what children, the universal classroom, Joel Talcott.
Joe Van Hervegen.
Yeah, that's one, but that is research-based, Aston University.
It doesn't include maths.
It does now.
Oh,
No,
does it?
It does. They're responding to the white paper proposals. Let's hope that the areas of need change. They'll have to respond again because they'll have to put cognition and learning in. But no, I think it very much does. But there's other screeners as well, you know, that look at areas of need, and that's what we need. We don't, in my humble opinion, we don't currently right now need to know how many have dyslexia, have dyscalculia, have SpLD maths. We need to know how many have those needs. There's a subtle difference there.
That's the thing. At the moment, you've got the primary need, but that's about it.
I
You just
know,
get
and it's
SpLD,
what they get first as well.
Yes.
So it's misleading. But
and let's not give them all a coloured overlay. I had to get that one in. Sorry, carry on, Janet.
Well, it was the only reference to dyslexia across all the papers, wasn't it? Giving a
I know.
coloured overlay.
There was a little bit of a mention of assistive technology in one point, or speech to text to speech or something. But yeah.
Yeah, but part of my manifesto when I went for the job of at the teaching service was, I want to know how many pupils have dyslexia, have SpLD. I want to, and I soon realised it was impossible to get
That's
that
so
data.
Interesting, yeah.
Because when you did get, as you know, I love data.
Do you?
I love data. Yes.
What's your favourite graph?
It's like choosing my favourite child.
That's what you said when I asked you what your favourite Muppet was.
Stock answer, but it's unreliable because I tried to hone down, and again, some of it was just based on a screener, not necessarily a good screener, a reliable screener, and I gave you that case of the
there's
school.
There's great ones and there's poor ones.
Yeah,
isn't
they
there?
give them a yellow overlay because they're on offer, and then that's
even
the
that
end
will
of
probably
it.
be better than what we are at the moment, where you just have SP. And that's the thing. In our system, we're looking at there is the primary needs, the secondary needs, additional needs, but we should also have a separate so we can record diagnosis because some children could have multiple. But it'd be like, okay, their primary need is this, but they also have this.
Yeah,
And it'd be nice, as you said. At the moment, I'm not hugely whether or not you think they have dyslexia or they've gone through this amazing screening. I'd rather have just that scoring. But to me, us doing it on our own is one thing, but actually all the systems which store information about pupil need to update. They need to actually look at what information we're storing. Education's moved on loads. When you look at what's in the MIS system and what you can record, it hasn't changed for 20 years.
yeah.
And if we can start to collect that as a standard, that actually, in this school or this local authority, this percentage of pupils do have dyscalculia, this percentage have dyslexia.
Yeah.
And at that moment, once we have that, we can then work out the quality of that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But storing it would be the first bit to me.
I think with dyslexia, that is more possible. But for dyscalculia, we're not there yet. We've got we haven't got decent tools. We haven't got enough assessors. But more than that, the crisis is maths difficulties. It's not dyscalculia. It's the huge number. And we don't know what that number is, and I agree it would be good to know. But how many people have not got the math skills for life?
Yeah.
Sort of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like the third pounder that failed because
I love that. I love that story.
Because Yeah.
Do you know the third pounder story?
I think you're going to
Third
tell it
pounder,
to me.
because people didn't realise that a third pounder was bigger than a quarter
So I think
pounder.
McDonald's launched, had the
Oh,
quarter pounder
right,
burger.
yeah. Oh,
They
how
launched the
funny.
third
Third
pounder,
pounder.
Yeah.
but 4 is bigger than 3. So
Yeah.
I'll go for that one.
So that, so that
well,
comes down to...
fractions. I mean,
Yeah.
in fact, I remember having a discussion when I was teacher training about what's the point in fractions. Well, who needs fractions in their everyday life? Well, you do if you go to McDonald's, clearly. Thirds and quarters.
Yeah.
But it is, you see there are always some random exam posted or test posted on social media where it was blah, blah has half pizza, another child has 5/8. How could the half be more? And the child it's probably a bigger pizza. And the teacher went wrong. 5/8 will always be bigger than a half.
Yes, yeah. That's executive functions.
Right, so we aim for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
We've talked for an hour.
Right.
Should we carry on for another hour?
I would love to.
We could.
This will be hour 3 for us. So before we end, is there? Obviously, we've covered lots, meandered all over the place. Talked about. I'll find out who your favourite Muppet is afterwards.
She hasn't got one. It would be like choosing her favourite child.
Again, I almost said something to that.
Good answer.
I almost said, but I thought no, I'll say that for off air. That question, response to that. So, anything you want to add? Any final statement you want to kind of say before I end?
I think my heart wants to go out to Senkos. I think, and we haven't mentioned AI complaints from parents, the growth in that for Senkos and the huge load that they are taking on, and really just, love your Senkos. And Senkos, please hang in there. We need you. You're wonderful. Please hang in there. And let's hope that Dale's vision, our vision, it is going to happen and things will get easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've stolen my idea, really. But no, I think coming between the two of you, it's focusing on all the fantastic practice that is quietly happening.
Yes.
Successfully happening. We need to know where it is. We need to know what's happening. And with my maths hat on, the crisis is maths difficulties, not dyscalculia.
Yeah.
And I think just to kind of come to your comment, Louise, is I think all the newspapers run on negativity. Social media runs on negativity.
Yeah.
And I think Senkos are feeling a lot of pressure at the moment. But I'm not saying it's not real.
No.
What I would like to say is, although everyone's saying it's on you, go look at the Austrian Inspection Framework. Go look at the teaching standards. Go look at everything. It's not on you. Yeah, and if your head teacher's making you feel that way and you're thinking about leaving teaching, change school. Yeah, every school is different. And I know lots of people get...
That's very true.
And don't leave teaching, stop being a Senko. Try it in a different school.
Yeah, that's
different
very
authority.
true.
It can be very, very different. And it is, and I see it all over my social media channels, this pressure Senkos are feeling, this is all on me, I'm going to... It's not. It's by making you feel that, it's almost like that's what everyone, almost like your worry fuels your looking into it, which fuels everyone's views and then the engagement, and because you're engaging with it, people produce more of it. It just becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. But go look at the Austrian Inspection Framework. Go look at things like the statement about to get happiness, whatever the latest grading is with Ofsted, around SEND. It's about the Senko having the appropriate authority to be effective. There are loads of statements in that Ofsted which support Senkos. And when everyone is saying it's all on you, it is not. It is on every leader on the school.
Absolutely. And every teacher.
And every teacher.
Person that works there, actually.
And also there is, and I'm not sure when this is coming up, there's going to be standards for inspecting trusts. And I'm looking forward to what that looks like for SEND.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be another, I think, piece of the same jigsaw. It's not going to be a curveball over there. To me, it's going to just reiterate that SEND is everyone's responsibility. Everyone needs to be doing this. They're spending on... That will all be in there. And I'm hoping that that's going to be like okay, now trust again. And some do it amazingly. I know some of the trust leads, and they're doing amazing.
Yeah.
Others,
Yeah.
probably not.
Yeah.
But again, national standards, Ofsted is kind of a national standard. That trust inspection will become a kind of a national expectation for all trusts around SEND.
Yeah.
I think we can almost predict what it will be as well, because it's apart from the 5 areas. Most of it we could predict what was coming in the white paper.
And the 5 areas, again, I saw that and everything about it, I went, yes. I was really happy until Louise messaged me and I went, yeah, they literally have completely
It's
missed
gone.
a giant
It's vanished.
cohort.
And I was on holiday and did the same thing.
For me, it was really good because we've literally, we spent the last year developing an executive function framework.
Fantastic.
And we're just finishing it off, and that came out, and we're like, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It now
It's
looks like
the
we've done
right
it in
thing.
response,
Yeah.
but
No.
it was just learning so much about executive function, going, we need to really help
Yeah.
schools see where children are so they don't just... And again, in the white paper, it was about support, not just sanctions.
Absolutely.
There's lots of little statements in there which I thought were quite... didn't need to be in there, but were quite there for reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like, you are doing lots of sanctions for children who are struggling with executive function skills, who need support. So I am going to be optimistic
Good.
until more documents come out, which then destroy it.
Keep your pink glasses on, Dale.
Where we are in the whole process is this is going to take another 3-4 years.
Yeah.
You've got to start optimistic. If you're already
Yes.
saying it's going to fail, you're going to make it fail. You're going to go, and then you're going to be, see, I prune you.
But I think that's been part of the issue with the old system. It's just the negativity is just...
Yeah.
It's been unfashionable to
And
manage,
that's the problem
hasn't
with
it?
social media, isn't it,
Yeah.
as well?
And can I just add that I'm absolutely rubbish at wrapping this podcast up.
All right, see ya. Bye. We could just talk all day.
I could. Absolutely loved, absolute pleasure discussing this with both of you. There's certain areas, and again, on social media you get one person voice, but to me it's that I like having these conversations, these rich conversations, discussing these smaller parts, but actually have a big impact for those pupils. So it's important that is discussed. Louise and Janet have shared their contact details and how I can follow them on social media. So as always, you'll find all of that in the show notes. So you can reach out, you can follow the work they're doing and so on. And also Louise has shared a blog on the same topic with me. So you'll find all of those in the show notes. And as always, the show notes are going to be wherever you listen to the podcast or on the Sendcast website. And if you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me to stop being so optimistic or anything else. Please send a message on social media or via email to us. And the email address is hello@thesendcast.com. And if you've enjoyed the Sendcast, why not look into Sendcast Sessions? That is our online CPD that you can purchase for your school. Each session is £10, but it is yours forever, so you can build up a library of CPD around SEND that everyone in your school can access. We also run free SEND briefings twice a year, designed to help everyone keep up to date with all the changes going on in the world of SEND. So head over to the Sendcast website to find out more about Sendcast Sessions, and you'll find a link in the show notes as well. But for now, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Sendcast. It's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.